Make sure that you're sitting comfortably so that we can take a moment and center ourselves. Take a deep breath into your body. And then exhale. As the breath leaves you, let go of all the yesteryears. Adjust, fine-tune your posture and move into stillness. Find that place where you can be still and maintain a fully lifted, erect spine, a lift in your upper chest, shoulder blades down the back ribs and shoulder bones back. So all those adjustments are done without being overdone. Move the breath into the body and watch how it moves. Where does it touch first? And then second, and then third. And then as it leaves the body, where does it leave you first? And then second, and then third. And as you watch and you make the notes of where you see the movements first, second, and third, for each, the inhale and the exhale, begin to move those two parts of your breath into an equal amount of time. Let the focus of the mind on the breath and your task at hand be what's forward in your mind. Let everything else step back. Now relax with the practice. Raise your hands up to your heart and connect to that inner being of light. That part of you that is an expression of love. Exhaling, bow your head. Release your hands and then open your eyes and then lift the head. Take a deep breath, inhale up. Interlace the fingers and turn the palms to the sky. As you're reaching up, lower the head. So the back of your neck is also stretching while you open up the shoulders. And then release, twist right. Release, twist left. Bring the legs out in front of you, pump your thighs. And then Balankonasana. Try to relax the inner thighs so that your feet will spread a little bit. And don't worry if they don't open, you just let them try. And then bring the legs together, stretch your legs out, cross your legs. If your knees let you, you can always swing over to the side. Otherwise, you cross your legs, roll over onto your hands and knees, and come into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog pose. And right away from here, after we lengthen our spine and get it ready for movement, we'll do 9 up dogs and down dogs, going back and forth and ending back where we're starting. If at any time you get tired, rest. If any time you feel this is too much, go down and do the back bend and the forward bend in the table pose, also sometimes called the cat and the cow. Let's begin. Inhale, now keep the pit of the abdomen lifted and go into your back bend. We're warming up the front and the back muscles, lengthening them both. Ah, there. 2. Now you might be ahead of me if you're a little faster. That's okay. 3. Or you can go at the rhythm that I'm going. And if you are, we're all about at number 5, those of us who are with me. And which means we're over halfway there. Don't forget to breathe while you do this, and don't forget in both postures, draw the lower abdominal muscles upwards. And when you're going back into down facing dog, use the abdominals to help you. There. Now down you come and lie on your back, because we get started right away, right? So we'll do a very important movement of the pelvic tilting. Place your hands on your low ribs, and these low ribs tend to pop out. So when you place your hands on the low ribs, let them sink down to the floor. Remember, when we have a lot of tension in the area of the diaphragm, then what will happen is the lumbar spine will lift up. We don't want to strengthen and stabilize core muscles with the low back in the incorrect position or the lower thoracic. So we want to make sure that those low ribs are now touching the floor. And the feedback is that our hands will rest on those low ribs in the front body, and we can make sure that they become very still and quiet. Then begin to do your pelvic tuck, which you feel the back of the pelvis in the area of the tailbone lift upwards, and then you go into the tilt, which the tailbone will sink towards the floor. Now the lumbar spine is going to move with the pelvis as you do the pelvic tuck and tilt. But the ribs, where your hands are, they should remain quiet. It can be quite a challenge because we know that for many of us, that those thoracic vertebrae want to move so bad because of the tension around the connective tissue. So don't worry, we'll just give it a shot and see how well we can do this. If you find it difficult, just keep the effort going. But here's something that will actually help us. And that is that when we do the pelvic tuck, we're going to add the sound to the exhale. And that can be shh or something that you like. And remember, you might have people at home that freak out when they hear you make these sounds, but don't worry about them. It's not about them right now, it's about you. So I'm going to do a pelvic tilt, and here comes the tuck with the sound, or shh sound. And when you do that, you'll notice that you can control your ribs better. So here's the tuck, the tilt, here's the tuck. Shh. Shh. Now that we've got that going, and keeping your hands on the low ribs, if you've got it, let the feet float gently off the floor, just like a little inch, a cushion of air, an inch. And as you have the feet off the floor an inch, continue to try to do the pelvic tuck and the pelvic tilt without the ribs moving. So again, your hands serve as feedback. They stay right there, and we're moving the pelvis. The lumbar spine is moving because it's attached to the pelvis, but the thoracic spine part of the spine is trying to stay very steady. It's very challenging, isn't it? And by the way, sometimes I notice in classes that people will lift their feet higher than what we're asking them to. Try to make it challenging by keeping the feet hovering right above the floor while you tuck and tilt. On your next exhale, just release the feet down to the floor, and you can kind of say to yourself, well, thank God that one's over. It can only get better from here. Well, that's not really quite true. Now let's do the pelvic tuck by lifting the pelvis up, moving the back of the pelvis towards the feet, and then facing the pelvis back down. This does not mean that we have flattened the low back on the floor. There should still be a lumbar curve there. It's just part of your anatomy. But it does help us to get these thoracic ribs in the back body, close to where the kidneys are, on the floor. Now bring the feet all the way together and holding the ribs down and holding that posterior pelvic tilt, lift your feet off the floor and hold your legs, thigh bones 90 degrees to the floor, shin bones parallel to the floor. So if you could see yourself on the camera or on your video screen, you would be able to check yourself out. Now, you probably have me up there, right? So you can watch me, and that's fine too, but you can always go back later and pin yourself up in your own personal Zoom meeting and check yourself out. Now, while holding these ribs down, on an exhale, begin to lower just one leg as if it's going to touch the floor. But the moment you feel the ribs poke up, that's where you stop. So everybody's stopping point will be different. If the toe touches the floor, then that's where you stop. Inhale, hold it if you can, and then exhale, lift the leg back up. So the key is all the movements will be done on exhales. There's going to be an inhale pause, and that's going to make it pretty challenging because you have to hold it while inhaling. Let's try the left leg. Inhale. On the exhale, lower the left leg. The moment you feel the ribs poke up, that's when you stop. Inhale, hold it if you can, and exhale, come up. Now let's start to go back and forth on each side. Lower on an exhale. Pause on an inhale, lift on an exhale. So you don't have to breathe out of your mouth. I'm just doing that so you can hear the exhale. Inhale. Now, some of you might get to the point where you feel like you need to rest. That's okay. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do one more on the left side, and then I'm going to take a break. I'm going to place my feet down on the floor. And you could do another set if you want to, because I'm going to talk a moment and tell you what's next. We're going to repeat what we just did, but try to make it more challenging. The good news is, because if you said to yourself, that was already challenging enough, I don't want to take it another notch up, then just repeat it again, because you'll benefit from repeating it just like it is. You don't need to take it to another level, but some people have found it so easy that we've got to bump it up a notch. So the only difference is that now, for those of us that want more challenges, we'll take the leg out and down. So you still want to keep these ribs back, these low floating ribs on the floor. Still maintain a lumbar curve, so it's not so much, you don't tuck the tailbone so much that you end up with your low back flat on the floor. We don't want to strengthen the muscles that stabilize us into a posture of flat back, and we don't want to strengthen the muscles around what we would call a lordosis low back. A lordotic low back is more correct. Hands here. So legs up. Did you do your posterior pelvic tilt? If you didn't, lift your pelvis, do your little tuck, put the pelvis down, lift your legs up. Hands on the low ribs. Okay, let's try this. Inhale. Exhale, the leg goes down and out. Oh, it gets really heavy out there. And then pause on the inhale, hold it, and then on the exhale, come back. Now, it's up to you how far you take the leg out. Some of you may stop a little bit sooner than I. The key is the moment the ribs poke up, that's where you stop. Because you'll get stronger faster and able to maintain that position of your stabilizers around the spine if you're mindful of when you start to lose it. Just practice at that place. Let's see. I bet we can get 5 each side. So for me, this will be number 2 set, right? Some of you may be ahead of me, some of you may be behind me, but I'm going to keep going. So here's my number 3 on my left side. And I'm just making the sound of breath so you can figure out what, because that's a little tricky, right? It's hard for some people to figure out the breath. So I've got one more left. And one more on the left.
and then place the feet on the floor. Now just take a pause. You need to rest when you're doing something that intense, and also lift your pelvis up and just stretch those muscles out. That feels pretty good, doesn't it? And I know some of you are hoping that we'll take a little break from doing those double leg lift thingies, but not going to happen yet. So, so now what we want to do is start to actually do the classical yoga posture called Urdhva Prasarita Padasana. Now, in the classical form, the arms are overhead, stretched out straight, but we know that so many of us have tightness in the shoulders that we're going to do a different position. But before we take the arms into our alternative arm position, we're going to get that feedback again on our low ribs. Bring the legs all the way together. They should be connected to, and we're going to work them together as one leg now instead of two legs. Bring the knees over the hips, and you can actually practice this right here and or straighten the legs. And once you get the legs to straight, if you can't see your legs and you can't tell if they're straight or not, then you can always ask somebody if they're in your house, are my legs perpendicular to the floor and are my knees straight? Now, if you have tight hamstrings, you're going to have to bend the knees a little bit, because if you straighten the legs with tight hamstrings, it's going to cause your pelvis to lift up. And that's kind of defeating the purpose of having the lumbar curve in place to strengthen around. Now we're going to go down very slowly. We're going to stop at 30. Let's see, go for this is 90, and right now we're working the abdominal core. You can tell we're going to go 90, 60, 30, 10. So somewhere in there, just imagine, we don't have to get a goniometer out and measure ourselves. We're going to see if we can make it all the way down. But stop the moment your ribs come up. So let's try it. Inhale. Press out through your heels and exhale, lower, maybe about 60 degrees. Uh-oh, it's going to be hard. Exhale. Now we're maybe about 30 degrees above the floor. Exhale. Now about 10 degrees above the floor. On your next exhale, go all the way back up. Wow, that was challenging, wasn't it? Okay, now the good news is you can do it with bent knees to make it a little bit easier, or you can say, I'm just going to go from 90 to 60 and come right back up. Let's try it again. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And come back up. Now let's rest a moment, because I want to change where the hands are. The hands have been giving us feedback, but I think we've got that under control now. The alternative position, instead of taking the arms overhead, is just to take them behind, take the hands behind your head and let the elbows be open. That way, all of this area, the chest and the low ribs, the upper abdomen, is all open now, instead of you closing your arms around this part of the torso. Everything's open and ready to work. Some of you have probably kept right on doing it. I'm envious. Okay, let's make sure that feel your low ribs on the floor. Check. Still got a little lumbar curve. 5 vertebrae should be off the floor. Not a big weighting low back lumbar curve. Nay. Not a flat back. Nay. But the little 5 vertebrae that make it the low back are not on the floor. Now, thigh bones perpendicular. Lower legs join in. Legs perpendicular. Press out through your heels. Inhale. And on the exhale, see if we can get to that 60 degrees above the floor. Hold it as you inhale. Don't forget, you got to keep your abdominals contracted strongly. That was 30 degrees above the floor, somewhere in that area. And then 10 degrees, hovering right above the floor. And on your next exhale, up you come. That's refreshing, isn't it? I bet you've got another one in you. Pause, inhale. Remember, you can make it a little easier by keeping the knees bent for those who need to, or don't go down so far, and then exhale, come up. So don't message me and say, oh, that was too much, I couldn't do it. There are so many variations. Of course you can do it. Now let your legs come down, pause and rest for a moment. Good. Now we're going to change. I know you've probably said, please, let's take a break from leg lifts. And I'll say, all right. Let's get into the back for a little bit. Let's come into all fours. And just because we've been working so much on our back, loosen the spine up with a little bit of the cat and cow. Or just, it's really the cat practice. It's called Vajrasana. But now we come to the table, all fours, and try to, don't let the back sag. You see me sagging? Nay, and then don't let it be rounded. But do make sure that you're not sagging the upper body away from the shoulder blades. Keep the back ribs up against the inside of your shoulder blades. So you press your hands down and feel your shoulders all connected. Now lift your right leg up behind you. Now that right there could be enough, but when you lift that right leg, you want it to be level to the floor. And if you have an issue in your low back, you could always reach the leg back and put the toes down on the floor and get the upper body part. And the upper body part is to now do the left arm. Now I'm going to keep looking at the floor. You could look up if you wanted to, and that's okay for some of us when the neck doesn't have any issues. But I look at the floor just to encourage those of us with neck challenges to look straight down, keep the neck long. Keep stretching through the right heel and the left fingertips. Now release and place this back on the floor. When we do this, don't forget that the abdominal muscles have to keep your inner organs lifted up against the spinal column. We don't want the organs to just drop down to the abdominal wall and leave the lumbar spine unsupported from the front. Left leg, right arm, and of course breathe. This is really like, preparing for, we use this as a prep for the warrior three posture. So we do that pose, not just for balance, but also it's one of the most powerful back strengthening practices in yoga. Now let's release, and we'll do each side again, 3 breaths, and then switch sides. So I'm going to send you off on your own. Try to do 3 times each side. So here's side number 1, 3 breaths. And then side number 2, 3 breaths. Now that was me and my breaths. You might be ahead or behind me. And so that's all fine. I'm on my second repetition. I'm trying to keep the long lines of the body from the right fingertips to the left heel this time. You can always leave out any part. If you have a problem, an issue, a challenge with one of your extremities, leave that part out. And then one more time for me. You may already be done, or you may be behind me. Your breaths are much longer and much more fuller than mine are. So when you teach, when you're talking, it's hard to keep up with your breath. You say, I have no idea where I am. But I don't want to disappoint the students. I have to do it with them and encourage them. Good. Okay, and now stretch back in child's pose. Okay, now there's a practice that we do where we bring the knee towards the forehead, right? So the leg goes back and up a little bit, so it's like a back bend. And then when we bring the knee into the chest, the head and the knee are trying to meet, then I'm going to ask you to do this little extra abdominal crunch. You go, ping. So it looks like that. So we'll do it 3 times on with the, I've got my left leg up. So it doesn't matter which leg you start with. But it looks like this again. Inhale, exhale, and lift. Stretch back. Exhale, and then lift. And then stretch back. And when the knee comes to the forehead, there's a little lift. And then you place that leg down. So 3 times, let the other leg back. This is my right leg. So I'll do the back bend. Exhale, bring the knee in and do the crunch. Stretch the leg back, inhale, exhale, and squeeze. Stretch back and squeeze, and then place that leg down. So I hope that that wasn't too difficult. Now you can always just do this knee to chest. And when you're bringing that knee in, and you can leave the upper body out, you're still going to be getting the abdominals. But we're giving you that extra lift when you round the back because it makes you squeeze them in the abdominals in even tighter. So it's like a little extra squeeze to help us get ready for summer, right? Oh, we're going to be all in those big t-shirts. So let's try it now. I am going to suggest we go for 6 on each side, 6 on one side, 6 on the other. I'm going to do my left leg first because it's the one closest to the camera. Here we go. Here, inhale, exhale, punch, inhale, exhale, punch, inhale, exhale, punch. That was 3, right? 4, 5, and the last one on the left leg, 6. And release that knee down. And let's do the other side. Inhale, stretch back, and exhale, punch. 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one is 6. Okay, good. Now you're going to lie back on your back again. Oh no, not more leg lifts. Oh no, it will be like that. This is what based on boat pose, but it's done. Many of you have been doing this one with me for years. It's probably one of your favorite practices. I actually kind of think it's more like a canoe instead of a boat because we don't lift up very high. And we do it in 3 stages so that you have the opportunity to figure out what stage works best for you and where you should stop. Now you bring the feet all the way together and the knees start bent. And all you do is place your hands behind your head and try to lift up as far as you can the upper body. So inhale and exhale, you lift up. Now, like most yoga poses, you just hold it. It's not like the gym crunch, which is fine, but this one is just hold an isometric contraction, like they do in boat pose, except for instead of being on the back of the pelvis, we're resting on the lower part of the thoracic body. And then inhale, down you come. So that's all it is. Let's repeat that. And this time, what I want you to do is see how long you can hold it before you say to yourself, I've got to come down. I'm going to shoot for me, 6, 7, 8 breaths. Let's try it. Some of you may be thinking it's time to come out. And by the way, you're trying to get the shoulder blades off the floor. So that if you're resting on the shoulder blade tips, that's okay, but that's just part of starting position. So that's okay for now. Eventually, the shoulder blade tips should be off the floor. So let's come down and just rest for a moment. Now I'm holding my head, that way I don't get any tension in my throat or my neck. Now you're ready for part 2, and I'm sure we can do this. In part 2, the feet will lift lightly off the floor, just a little bit like we did earlier. Remember that, where the feet were just off the floor and the pelvic tuck and tilt? You've got this. So we're starting to put a few things together now. Inhale, and on the exhale, you lift up the upper part of the canoe first, and then you take another breath and you exhale and you lift the lower part. So the feet are off the floor. Now that'll make you use even more of the abdominal wall. You can feel the uppers and the lowers. That's pretty much fun, isn't it? And then down you come. So now you say, but that doesn't look anything like a canoe. So we have to go ahead and build the whole canoe now. So that means you do the first part where you lift the upper body up. And then the second part is lift the feet off the floor. And the third part is you start to take the legs out like we did in that very first leg lifting exercise that we did, the second part of that exercise. So we'll see how far the legs go out before we feel like we can't hold the body in check anymore. Because when you lift up, these ribs are going to be on the floor, these on the back of the body, shoulder blade tips up. The moment everything starts to collapse, you're done. No need to keep holding it. Let's give it a shot. In stages. On the exhale, up you come. We've got that part. On the next exhale, lift the feet off the floor a little bit. You've got that part. And number 3, we're going to go ahead and stretch the legs out and make the little canoe. So there you are. And your whole front abdominal wall is just having the time of its life. And as long as you can hold it, endure. Oh, by the way, you have to breathe. If you hold your breath, it really won't work. Now I'm going to go ahead and bend my knees in because some of you might try to stay with me and strain yourselves, and everything comes down. Let's see. That was one. And let's do a second one. I'm so glad you're muted. I can't hear anything. So let's try. Curl. We want this, and yet we want to complain about it at the same time, don't we? Curl up, lift the feet, and stretch the legs out. Now try to keep the shoulder blade tips off the floor even in this position. Do your best. You're trying to bring the pubic bone and that sternal notch towards each other. Okay, one more breath. Keep holding if you can, but some of us need to come out and rest a moment. I think we could do one more. Yeah, because we have to do some oblique work too. So we know we want to do the Jatari Parivartanasana, the rolling stomach pose. So that's a fun one. But we want to do some plank. I mean, some of you, I bet you right now, you're probably in the chat box. Where are the planks? Where are the planks? Let's do the planks next, and then we'll do the Jatari Parivartanasana. I have a whole bunch of variations of planks, and I think you're just going to love them. So let's do this one again. One more canoe. On the exhale, lift up, lift the feet up on the second exhale, and then breathe the legs out. So this isn't just an exhale or anything, just keep breathing and start to take the legs out. Just have a little fun. Don't let your canoe sink though. Don't let it sink, don't let it sink. Uh-oh, it's sprouted a leak. We better come down. And that's, it'll be nice to do a little sweet bridge just to stretch all this out. And you should, when you're working hard like that, it's good to give yourself a little break. Just a little rest. Just a little one. Let's roll over and do the plank variations. Now, sometimes the arms get tired of holding you up with the elbows straight, and so people will come down and do them on the forearms. But if we can do them with the elbows straight, that would be nice. Let's just see if we can do a plank, and we want to time it. And some of you are probably doing 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 8 minute planks, but we're going to just hold this one for 10 to 12 breaths, and that's your 10 to 12 breaths, not mine. So up you come. And a few things while you're doing this is to make sure that you don't sag the pelvis and keep the thighs pressing thigh bones upward. Don't go into a pelvic tilt of any sort. So no flattened back and no overarched back. So the pelvis should be in neutral. And then lift the abdominal muscles. You pull them towards the heart, lifting the pit of the abdomen, but you also have to then lift the organs towards the spine. The shoulder blades are actually wide. When you do the plank, the serratus anterior muscle must be connected. So the shoulder blades are pulled to the side ribs via that important stabilizing muscle. And notice I don't drop the head and I don't lift the head. I keep the neck in neutral with the spine. Now you know how that counts as a single breath. I have no idea how close to your goal is, how close to the goal I am, or your goal. So I'm going to come down and we'll just rest a moment. Sometimes you need to stretch back in child's pose. Sometimes you want to shake your wrist out. And by the way, if this bothers your wrist, you can actually use a chair. A kitchen chair will be fine of some sort, and come up and do your planks like this, and it takes the pressure off the wrist. So you'll have just as much fun and you'll still get some of the work. That's also good for people who have trouble with the planks. And planks can be done on your knees, right? So you can make them easier, and also on your forearms. That's another way, especially if you have wrist issues. If you go down to the forearms, you're going to have some trouble with this next plank. Okay? Remember, in the cat and the cow, when we were doing we did the cat and the cow, and then we brought that leg in and we did that crunch. Let's just do the little punch now in plank pose. So we go into plank, and you can watch me first. I'll do a couple. You're going to hold the plank, and you get punched. You get punched. You get punched. So it's really just a contraction in, contraction in, contraction in. Let's try to do 6. That's all. 6 little crunches like that while in plank. Here we go. Ready? And you can be on your knees. That was 1. Exhale. Exhale, got punched. 3 more. Only 2 more. And the last one. Okay, good. All right. Now, you notice how when you do that, it makes you warm. Oh my God. So you're stimulating those solar plexus fibers. But that was so easy. It was too easy. You know what it needs? It needs that knee coming in when we do that, like what we did in that variation of the cat where the leg was coming in and we were punching. Let's try that in plank. You actually have already prepared for it. You're probably dying to do another variation, just that very pose. Watch me first. So it goes like this. I'm going to do my left leg first. I just bring it in and then I punch and then I take it back. See how simple? Bring it in, punch, take it back. Oh, here we go. That you can keep watching me if you want. And you can always remember, you've got this simple version that we did earlier. So it's still going to contract those abdominals, but let's see for who is ready. You can also start on your knees with your knees back a little bit and make it more fun. But let's try it. Here we go. Plank, inhale. Exhale, punch, stretch the leg back. Punch, that was 1. Here we go. There's number 2. 3, we're going to try for 6. That means each side. 4, you can stop at any moment. You can rest. You can say, I've had enough. You're trying to get your knee up to your elbow and then you punch up. I think we got 1 more in us, don't you think? 1 more. And then release. Oh, yes. We need that. This won't be good on the video if you watch the recording, but it deserves to be repeated multiple times. Here, where I am sequestered, you know that Jerry Cunningham lives here. And what he has done is he has made banana pudding. Yes, I need to be protected from the banana pudding that he has made. That's actually why we're doing this. Because it is so good. Okay, now we're good. I know, I can sense you. What should I ask you for? Can we make it more challenging? Absolutely. So remember, you've got variations so far. You've got just doing the punch. You could do that variation. You could go to all 4s and do the variation, or you could stick with knees straight to that same side elbow. But we're going to make it challenging so we start hitting the obliques by taking the knee to the opposite elbow. So if I'm going to demonstrate this in 2 different positions so you might see it better. So it goes like this. So the knee comes up to the opposite elbow when you punch. Opposite elbow. You see how I'm crossing over. So that's going to do the cross fibers. I'll turn this way. So you can see my knee coming up. It comes up and goes to the opposite elbow. You see? Opposite elbow. Are you ready? I want to stay facing this way, okay? And that way, you can see what's happening. Don't you think we can try for 6? Okay. And that means 12 actually, because you have to do 6 on each side. Here we go. Inhale, exhale, cross and lift. Punch. That was 1. This is the 3rd one. The 4th one. And the 5th one. Oh my goodness, it's wonderful. If you feel it, a little struggle, you know you're doing it wonderfully. Let's see. Shalamasana or Jatari Parivartanasana next? I think that we should twist first and back bend second. In Jatari Parivartanasana,
when you take your legs to the right, and we'll do the bent knee version first, just to make sure that we understand how we can modify. You want to take your pelvis to the right before you take your legs to the left. So good. I'm going to actually do it this way. So you can see me. You see my arms are out to the side, palms out. If you have a heavy piece of furniture, you can always stick your arms under the piece of furniture and hold on tight. But before I take my legs to the right, this will be your left, to the left, the pelvis shifts to the right. And then you bring the legs over to the right as you exhale. Now we're just going to do one breath. So it's going to be exhale over and inhale up. But before you go to the left, you have to shift the pelvis to the right, to the left, and then take the legs to the right. This will be your right, to the right like that. You see? So let's try that. And if you need to watch a couple before you do that, it's fine too. Keep the knees as close together as you can. There's going to be a tendency to shear, and I did that in my demo. So I'm going to try really hard not to do it when I'm actually doing the practice. Remember, this is going to be your right. So my instructions are going to be to hopefully mirror you. This is the right and this is the left. So arms out to the side, and look at your arms and make sure that they're placed completely perpendicular to your spine. Press the backs of your arms into the floor, including your hands, and then lift your feet up. Now you do a little shift of the pelvis to the right. Good. Now keeping the knees tight together on an exhale, just roll over to your left, go pretty close. You can stop anywhere along the way. The moment you feel that you cannot maintain that right shoulder on the floor, that's when you stop. And on the inhale, come up. Now we've got to get back to the middle. You can even place your feet down. Do a little shift if you need to do it that way. And now let's do the other side. Watch the shoulder when it pops up. That means for your body, you've gone too far. Okay, so let's try to do it 2 more times on each side, and then we'll try to make it more challenging. Lift your feet up. Oh, by the way, you can always put the feet down and do the shift too. But the shift is important to help keep the spine spiraling down its center. And then up you come, and then feet down, do a little shift, and then over to the other side. This is the rolling stomach pose. So one of the challenges of it is to try to make the name of the pose tells you, as I go to the right, the stomach should actually feel like it's rolling to the left. As I go to the left, the stomach should roll to the right. So let's try it one more time. Or you may have already done your set. I actually stopped to talk. So here we go. Inhale and exhale one more time to my left. Coming up as I inhale, and then I'm going to place the feet down to do the adjustment. And then one more time over to the other side, the right, and come up and back to center. Okay, now the classical form of the pose is with the legs straight. So you have a simplified variation now. You can do it with the knees bent, and you can also go in between. So you have the bent knee posture. Let me turn this way for a second. The thighs, to make it more challenging, will start perpendicular, but actually come a little bit towards the armpit as you go over to the side. However, if you want to keep the knees bent and keep it challenging, keep the knees at 90, but you can bring the heels closer to the buttocks, and it'll make it a little bit easier for you. And bring the knees in a little bit more, that'll make it easier. But for the true challenging practice, legs straight together and and staying 90, but they do come towards the hand. So that if it's bent knees, think of knees towards the armpit with straight legs, feet towards the hand. So I'm going to position myself this way, shift my pelvis. I won't be mirroring you now, so let's see. I'm going to my left. I actually went to the right first, didn't I? So let's go to the right, lift your legs up. Inhale and keep the legs together, and as you exhale, all the way over to the feet. Hover right above the feet, inhale back up. Notice that the right shoulder did not come up. Do the little shift. It's easy to do the shift when the legs are straight. And on the exhale, the legs will go over to the right hand, right as if you're going to put the little toe right into the head and come up and back to the center. Did you get that? So again, the most important thing is trying to
Go to the side and use your abdominal muscles to lift you back up and control you down, both concentric and eccentric contractions. Let's do it. Inhale. On the exhale, over to the side. Inhale, come up. Do your little shift. Inhale and exhale over to the side and come up. Do the little shift. Inhale, exhale over to the side. Inhale back up. Do your little shift. Inhale. On the exhale, go to the side. And some of you are probably now wondering, are we ever going to stop? I would say for you, do one more time each side if you could. And then when you're done, pause and rest. And again, it's always good to take a little break because these are very challenging practices. Chaturanga is not easy, but it will transform your obliques. But we still have got to do more back work. We need to do Shavasana, which is really one of the best back strengthening practices. Sometimes it's very nice to put a blanket at the front, at the very head of your mat, where your face is going to be down. Because if you're on the chin or on the forehead, the neck isn't always happy. If you're on the forehead, you can close the throat. If you're on the chin, it can crunch the neck. Also, some of us may be on a hardwood floor like I am. It doesn't bother my pelvis, but in case it does, for you, put some padding down. Don't be miserable, because when you lift your arms and your legs up in the locust pose, it's going to put more pressure on the pubic bone and the hip points. Let's begin. Our arms will be beside us, with the palms facing the pelvis. Now, before you lift up, make sure that you've got your legs long. Lift the right leg and reach back. Lift the left leg and reach back. Pull the back of your pelvis towards your heels so the low back is already long. Keep the shoulders moving towards the pelvis, and on an inhale, lift everything that will lift. As your arms come up, try to lift them so that they're parallel to the floor. I'll just hold it for 6 breaths. And then come down and rest. When you're resting, you can keep your position just like this, or you can take your arms and turn your head to the side. Take your arms up and rest your head on your arms and take your head to the side. Anything that's comfortable will be fine. That was locust number 1. Let's repeat that one, and then we'll do a variation. We'll do 2 variations because of things that I understand through my practices in therapy that can be weak in the upper back part of our body. So let's repeat this one, because of all of them, I think this is the most important one, the basic Shalabhasana. Now, I'm doing it with the palms facing the hips instead of facing the ceiling to get that little bit more external rotation so that the shoulder bone moves back more. So let's go ahead and do that. Do your adjustments. Back of the pelvis moves towards the heels to make the low back long. And now lift up on an inhale. Again, you might not know where your arms are, but you could always ask somebody, or you could look at yourself in your camera if you get a chance. You don't have to hold it as long as me. You can always come down and rest sooner if you like. I'm coming down now. And then just taking a couple of breaths. And what I'd like for us to try to do now is to have the arms in the goalpost position. So I'll sit up and just remind everybody what that will look like. It's here. Now, a lot of times when we lift up, the hands will stay down. The best that you can, let me turn sideways, you'll see this better. The best you can, try to rotate this bone, this shoulder bone like this, so that the forearm hovers above the floor and the hand doesn't tilt down to the floor. But that means we just have to do the best we can, because sometimes there's going to be some tightness, and our internal rotators is going to keep us from externally rotating in this position. And that's one of the reasons why we're trying to add this into our program, because we need to strengthen the external rotators a lot of times to counter the tightness of the internal rotators, which the pec major is one of them. And so we're constantly pulling the chest forward. So this will help us with that. So let me back up a little bit. I can see I'm trying to move under a chair and away from the camera. So the arms are beside you. I still reach my legs back one at a time, move the back of the pelvis towards the heels, keep the shoulder blades descending towards the pelvis, and lift on an inhale. And then try to get the hands a little higher than your elbows. A lot of times they're sinking like this with tightness, and we try to lift them, it'll just be the hands that move. Try to get the whole unit to move like that. Let the shoulder blades move down towards the pelvis. Try to keep the 90-degree angle with your forearms so you can take a peek left and right and see if your forearms look like they're parallel. Sometimes we don't really know what they're up to until we look. And then down we come. And one more. This time, I'm taking my arms over my head. Because of that, this blanket's going to be in my way with it being, it's going this way. And I need to turn it so it's the narrow way. Also, I have a chair right here, so I'm going to turn it now and do it this way. So the blanket is for my forehead, but it can't interfere with my arms lifting. So my arms have to start down here on the floor and lift out past the blanket. Now, this one's not easy. This is both arms in the balancing cap. Remember, we did the one arm at a time, but now it's both arms. This will help strengthen the lower trapezius, which is one of the weakest muscles in our body. So we'll do the best we can to get the arms to lift with the body. So do your adjustments and then lift on the inhale. Keep the elbows as straight as you can. And look at them. Check, are they straight? Are they bending? Try to juice out through the arms. Reach the toes in one direction and your fingertips in the other. And then lift the arms. Don't lift the neck. Don't lift the head. Don't strain that area. But lift the arms to the shoulder blade tips. The southern point of Africa on both sides. Embed it into the ribs. Embed it a little deeper, and then relax. Oh, and now child's pose. That will feel like a little piece of heaven. Oh. Oh my goodness. Well, it's time for Shavasana. I hope some of you didn't drop down in Shavasana too early, but we should rest. It will let everything you've done soak into the cells of your body, including your nervous system. So set yourself up and rest. Be extremely comfortable. And I'll call you out in just a few minutes. Oh, you can feel your heart racing and watch it begin to slow down. Feel your skin, the face beginning to relax. And know you've done something good for yourself. Any level of challenge that you took yourself through tonight, you'll benefit from. Your body is so thirsty and hungry to be challenged.
Take a slow, deep breath into your body. And then exhale completely. Bend your knees. Rock gently side to side. Roll over onto your right side and use your arms to press yourself up to a comfortable seated posture. It has been a wonderful pleasure for me to be with you this evening and practice together. May every day be filled with love, with light, with laughter. Namaste.